Let's now shift our attention to the United States, where US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order on police reforms, while taking care not to damage his friendly ties with the US law enforcement agencies. The US President delivered the remarks and signed the executive order on safe policing for safe communities after accusations that systemic racism is to blame for the deaths of black men like George Floyd and other African Americans at the hands of forces around the United States.
Many of these families lost their loved ones in deadly interactions with police. To all of the hurting families, I want you to know that all Americans mourn by your side. Your loved ones will not have died in vain. We are one nation, we grieve together, and we heal together. I can never imagine your pain or the depth of your anguish, but I can promise to fight for justice for all of our people. And I gave a commitment to all of those families today with Senator Tim Scott. But this is a big, big step, a step that hasn't been taken before. But in order to make real progress on public safety, we have to break old patterns of failure. Every group, everybody was thrilled, everybody had just about high-paying jobs. Our country was never in a better position, and we were planning on massive growth. It was happening. It was already there, including big salary increases, which were already taking place for the last 2.5 years.
Now, for more details about the situation in the United States and this executive order that the President has signed, we have Jagriti Dave joining us live from Washington, D.C. Jagriti, thank you so much for joining us. So tell us, the order that the President has passed, many are calling quite modest in nature, and he doesn't seem to want to offend anybody. So what does this executive order really entail?
So this executive order outlines a few details which many critics have said does not go far enough to stop the excessive use of force by the police. So it has financial incentives for police departments to set up and follow best practice standards on the use of force. It's going to set up a database to track police misconduct. It's asking police departments to involve mental health professionals when they get called out on cases which involve homelessness or people with mental health issues. But it doesn't really talk about any fundamental changes to police departments. There's a call of defunding the police that many protesters are rallying for, which is talking about shifting funding from police departments into social services. This is something that the President has categorically said he is not interested in doing. He is really casting himself in many ways as a president of law and order, and he's trying to toe this balance of being that president which has the law and order message which appeals to his base, and the president who is clearly under pressure from the weeks of protests that have gone on in the United States.
Right. So, there's one very interesting caveat in this order that everybody's talking about. We know that different states across the US have banned the use of chokeholds. But strangely, in this order, it seems to suggest that chokeholds will be banned except in cases when the officer's life is at risk. Now, this seems to be a very strange caveat in the order. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, critics of this particular order, one of the more prominent ones being Al Sharpton, the Reverend Al Sharpton, one of the country's leading civil rights activists. He gave the eulogy at George Floyd's funeral. He said that effectively that Trump's executive order, he described it as toothless and meaningless. Right. He said, we don't need studies, we need police that commit crimes to be punished. He said that all police who use chokeholds claim their lives were threatened. So what's new? So he's saying that this caveat essentially is not going to stop police using chokeholds, because as they currently do, they can claim that their life was threatened. So that is what critics say. The supporters of this bill, certain Republicans who've come out in support of this, say that this is a bold move, that this is a move that is a step towards significant changes between the police and the communities that they serve.
Right. Now, another interesting development that's taking place across the US seems to be that many police officers we hear across different states seem to be resigning. And do we see this situation escalating further? And what are the reasons behind their resignations?
Well, police departments in the United States are undergoing a period of intense scrutiny and change. There are changes that are being suggested from city councils, such as in Minneapolis, to completely dismantle the department and have a more community-based operation, entirely different model. Mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, has suggested an approach of defunding, which is the shifting of police funds, moving them to social services and youth services. And so there are significant changes and shifts happening in police departments across the country. It remains to be seen exactly the extent of the changes, how widespread they'll be. Legislation is clearly needed for a lot of the changes to be put into practice. How that impacts police officers and police departments, again, is yet to be seen. Both the Democrats and Republicans are offering their own alternative models of police reforms, bills that are being put forward. The Republicans is due out tomorrow at the moment. Right. Democrats are also debating on whether to ban chokeholds, but the Republicans are offering a slightly more pared down version, talking more about increased training for police officers. So really the impact on individual officers, it remains to be seen.
All right, Jagriti, thank you so much for joining us and for all your inputs.